Okay, we are back, and it's time to take this dashboard and upgrade it from a first project to a beginner project. I realized something that I didn't say before is that definitely something that should be upgraded from a first project is tooltips. So tooltips are this thing that when you hover over a mark, like an individual dot on a sheet is called a mark, the thing that pops up. So this is automatically generated. You can see what it generates, but that's kind of messy, right? Like it's just count of new underscore years underscore resolutions. Not great. So what we can do is actually we can edit. This is another thing that I didn't learn until like actually quite recently. It's been there the whole time though. If we go to worksheet up here in the top bar, we can click on tooltip and we can edit it right from the dashboard. The other option, the standard of how I have been editing my tooltips most of the time I've been using Tableau, is to go to the worksheet itself, and then you can go into the tooltip here, you can make adjustments. You can even put, things in here, which right now both genders are selected, so it's not really gonna like help. Let me see if it even does anything. Yeah, so like user gender is just a star right now, and star just represents like there's more than one option here. But you can put different things into the tooltip. Or you can just edit it by, I would take this and turn it into number of tweets or something instead of this default category. I generally always center my tooltips. I maybe play around with like these not being gray and things like that. Also, I will take this space out. It just looks cleaner and nicer that way. So that's definitely an upgrade that you can do, but we're not gonna worry about that. So let's think about how we're going to upgrade this to be a beginner project. So some thoughts that I have is playing with color. I'm actually thinking, because it's New Year's, which is like typically like New Year's Eve, like at midnight, I'm actually thinking we can do a black background on this because that's like kind of a cool way. We're gonna put them all into tiled containers instead of them being floating. And then I'm thinking about being thoughtful about color. So instead of just coloring the bars by the same measure we've already got on there, can we do it by something else that's a little bit more insightful? Like, can we maybe color them by gender to show the difference? So that, and then this one band here, I know like it can be on the left, but like I'm not loving this, honestly. I'd much rather have a bar of bands across the top, but that means we need more than one. So that's another thought that I have. You can whiteboard, you can whiteboard just on a piece of paper, you can use Figma like I said, but let's take this to the next level, make it look a little bit better. So to get started here, we're gonna build our sheets again, and then it'll come onto a dashboard. And I just wanna kind of reiterate that like when I'm building, like I obviously already have a plan in mind. I have the finished state over there on my left monitor, so I already know what I'm going towards. It's not normally this like fast, like boom, 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 boom. Like I have to like really think through and experiment. I have to explore the data and see, oh, there's a trend there, there's not a trend there, that's interesting, that's not interesting, oh, that field exists. A lot of my time is spent doing that as a real Tableau consultant. Like a lot of my time is just spent in data exploration. And then I have to think about how different sheets would work and what flow I want for the dashboard and how it's going to work for the end user. So if it feels like I'm going really quickly, it's because I am. That's just because I'm doing a tutorial and that's the best way to do it. So let's get a new sheet started here. Another thing, that I want to show you, get this stuff out of the way. What we can do is if you right click on the dashboard, click hide all sheets, and it gets rid of all those other sheets that we don't need cluttering up our field of vision here. So we've got a new sheet started. We're getting a new dashboard going. And this one, we're actually going to use a lot of these ones from before. So we're going to redo what we had done before. We're going to use our, and then now we actually are going to create a count of our tweets. So instead of that automatically generated field that I told you about before, we're going to come over here to create calculated field. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it be a count of New Year's resolutions, which honestly, you can actually do it this way. You can just drag that right in. But I just copy and pasted from my other window. That's why, full disclosure, that's why it came in that way. And then we're just going to call this count of tweets. And now we don't have to use our automatically generated field. we instead can use something that we know every time is count of tweets. Sometimes we want to think about count D of tweets, which is count distinct, but that's a data thing. Not covering that in this tutorial. So we're going to take count of tweets, we're going to bring it into here, and now voila. Now I'm actually not going to think about colors until I've got the dashboard going, because when you make a black background and then you have to make white things, it's really hard to build a sheet with like white marks on it, like a white line. That's a white sheet. So we're going to worry about that later. This is where we're at for now. We have got this. Now the reason I'm not using this sheet from before is because I want to actually retain this dashboard. And if I were to create the same sheet, but then I were to make changes to it for the new dashboard, like if I were to make the line white or yellow, then it would change on this dashboard too, which is not what we want. So I'm making a new one. I am going to call this tweet time I. I stands for intermediate. Nope, I'm going to call it tweet time B. Sorry, because B stands for beginner. We're not on to the beginner project yet. So we've got a tweet time sheet. Next, I am going to move on to that same tweet category that we had before. So I'm going to take tweet category, put it on columns, count of tweets, bring it up here on rows. We've got bars again. Now, one thoughtful thing that I can do here is I can actually change the sort order. So I like this kind of descending thing going on here. And just a cool tip that I learned probably about a month in, you can actually just quickly, this is a flip. It just flips what's in columns and rows. And I think like this is a really good view for like if we're ranking them. Like if we definitely wanted to like rank, okay, personal growth was like the most tweeted category, but in this use case, I actually think it's more interesting to just show the different categories and like not necessarily rank them. So I want to do it in this horizontal format. So instead of coloring this by the same measure that's up here, what can we color this by? I thought about using this retweet count, but like I said before, if we used retweet count on color, I think it's kind of misleading. I mean, it's definitely interesting. Finance having a lot of retweets, even though it doesn't have that many tweets, definitely interesting and tells a story. But I'd be more interested in seeing retweet count per tweet, per category. And creating that calculated field is a little bit beyond the scope of what I'm trying to do here. So instead of that, actually, let's look at what happens when we use a dimension as a color. So I'm thinking, you know, what would be really interesting is to see it broken out by color. So now we can see, and then there's a legend here, which my face is in the way of, female, male. Let's think about this. The difference between having color be on gender instead of, if it's on count of tweets, we're getting the exact same information as from the height of the bar as we are from the color of it, right? But if it's on gender, we're now getting new information out of this. Just be careful with this because you can overload people with too much color and too much information. So let's call this tweet category B and move on to the next sheet. So now let's go on to, total tweets. My example, I do have, it's a ban, but it's white. And so I just went and it looks like a blank sheet, but it's because it's white. That's why we don't develop with white backgrounds. So anyways, now we want to do total tweets. We want to do a ban, again, a big ass number that's going to give us a context for like, in this whole data set, how many tweets were there, just total. So what we're going to do is we're going to take count of tweets and we're going to put it onto text, just like before. And then actually, you know what, this is a good opportunity for me to, instead of doing that, let me delete this. What you also can do is you can duplicate. So I just went back to the first project. I just went to the total tweets ban sheet and you can duplicate it. So I want to use almost the exact same thing. So I want it to look almost exactly the same. I'm going to make some edits later, but I can just duplicate it. So now I got this total tweets ban and I'm just going to, instead of 2, I'm going to put a B there. Awesome. And then I'm actually just going to take off these filters because when you duplicate, it brings like the filters and everything with it. And we don't need those filters because we're doing a new dashboard. So take those off. So now, here's where we can do something interesting with bands. So like I said, bands usually are on the top, but it kind of looked awkward. Like look at this dashboard here. It was kind of awkward. Like if I had one band at the top, it's kind of awkward. So I'm thinking, what can I do to get multiple bands? So I want to still keep the total amount of tweets that we have, but I also, now that we're going with this gender theme here, let's also do it by gender. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this sheet, and then I'm going to make this be female. And just as a tip, if I have like a duplication thing that I'm doing, like I'm doing total tweets and then by female and then by male, and if I had other categories, I'll put the thing that changes in the name at the end as like the last thing, so then I can just like go from the end of it and then just backspace, backspace, instead of like, if I had to like change this word in the middle here, it's just a little bit more cumbersome. So just a little tip there, anything you're going to be changing, put it like at the end of the sheet. So think about for a second, we talked about filters. How do you think we can do female tweets only? You can pause to think about it. So the way that we're going to do this is the same thing we did before. We're going to take gender, we're going to select female, and now we just have to not forget to edit our text here. Total tweets. So then we are going to call this female tweets. Awesome. Oops. Okay, now we can do the exact same thing. You can think about how to do this on your own, but we can duplicate here, come up to our filter, and do male instead of female. If you're a regular Excel user, I think that it's kind of like, it's really cool to show people for the first time, like, oh, you can just change the filter like that. Because oftentimes they're like writing complicated formulas in Excel or doing other things, and I'm like, nope, if you want to just filter, just boom, just change it. There's your options. People get excited about that sometimes. So again, we're at the end here. The thing that we're changing is male, beginner. And then we are also changing this to be male tweets. And I looked, there is no option for like non-binary or anything like that. It's just male and female. Okay, now we have got our bands made. And so we want to go on to our map. So if you remember how to do a map, you can go and duplicate, or you can make one yourself. So you can pause here, or if not, I will show you again how to do it. So I am just going to do a duplication here. So I went back to my other map sheet, and then, okay, so since I had hidden all of the sheets from this first project dashboard, as soon as I duplicate it, the original map sheet is going to disappear, because when it's hidden, unless you're actively selected on it, it disappears. So I'm going to duplicate. Now I've got map 2, and you see map itself is hidden. So we've got map. We're just going to call this map B for beginner. And then I think I'm actually going to change the color scheme later, but we have this count of tweets that I want to use instead of that other count field. So count of tweets is on there. Let's check our bands to see if those, oh, they did. Okay, that's good. So I want to use this count of tweets field here in place of all of my automatically generated. And if something changes, then like here, then something's wrong because it shouldn't change, but it didn't. So we've got our map here, map. Awesome. This is good for now, but let's just take off the filters because we don't want to use the first dashboard filters on it. And then I think that only leaves us with our total time, tweet time. Now we just want to make that total time like the overtime. So what I'm going to do here, another option, instead of dragging it out and then selecting from the drop down, what we can actually do is if we right click our mouse and bring it out, this drop down will come up for us. And then what do I want to do it by? I think I want to do it by, well, let's do it by discrete. So when you do it by tweet created discrete, then it shows you like at the lowest, like the actual value, whatever is in there. So if it's by the second, by the hour, by the minute, by the day, whatever. Let's see what happens when we bring that out. I don't think that's the one I want to use. Let me look at my other one. Okay, and then, so we've got our tweet created out, and then we want our count of tweets here. We want to turn it into a line. No, that looks terrible. Look at how bad that looks, because it's way too long. This is way too granular. I think it's by like the minute or something. So instead, what I actually want to do is I want to switch it to hour. So interestingly here, if I switch it to hour, we've seen this before, right? This is, the difference between these are like, I don't want to get too off track in like doing this whole long lesson, but like you can see here with like how it says May and then 8, whereas here it gives you the actual, like it's 2015. This here, if you choose this hour option, it's saying of all the days, hour 5 instead of like day 5, hour 5. Whereas here it's giving me the day by day, hour 5. So let's look at how it looks different when I switch it. This is the view that I was looking for. I think I kind of fumbled in the explanation of this. This is not a course. Just look at the difference yourself, and you can also Google it. So, sorry, not the most perfect execution, but here we are. This is created, looking good. Let me look at my dashboard here. Let's think about this. So we've got all of the ones from before, plus the new bands, plus the new color scheme. Awesome, I like it. So we're gonna call this all time beep. And now we are going to make ourselves a dashboard. Again, we're gonna reformat it. Switch it to a fixed size. And then, what is going on with this like default? My little loom thing is in the way, but I think for this one, I'd like to go with this size. Okay. We want to take up our screen here. This is our like presenter mode. This like gives us an idea. Well, I guess I'll put color on it first. So what I want to do is I want to make this a dark mode thing, right? So this is where we can add color. So this is the size. So this is the size that I decided that I want here. Again, you can choose your own size. Like it doesn't really matter what size we're using. So to get started, we're going to switch this over to tiled containers. And what I want to do is I'm thinking about the structure of my dashboard, and what I'm going to want is like a title bar and then the rest of the stuff. So I'm going to bring out a vertical container. See how there's this little icon? That means I'm going to have a container and then a container. They're going to be stacked on top of each other vertically. So I'm going to bring out a vertical container onto my dashboard. And then here's a trick that I use. If you just start bringing out sheets, it can get a little bit messy. So let me show you, for example. You bring one out here, and then you can bring one out here, and you can bring one out here. That's fine. But as you start developing the dashboard more and things start to get smaller and smaller, it can be really difficult to like drop something into like the precise spot that you want. So what I do is whenever I bring out a container, I always let myself know where the container is. Like I kind of lock it into place by just putting in like a random text box. So I've got a random text box that kind of like shows me, here we are, we're in the container. But in this case, I can actually just make it my title. So I am going to open up my title here, and then I'm going to paste in from my other tab, which eventually we're going to make this white, but we'll start developing in black text. Okay, so I've got my title. That's good to go for now. Now let's start bringing out the sheets. So my general layout here is I want to get some bands across the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them into their own individual container. like this. I'm going to use a horizontal container now because I want them stacked like this. So I'm going to take a horizontal container and I'm going to put it into my vertical container. And to hold the space, I'm just going to put a little text box in there. If you don't quite understand what I'm doing here, that's fine. The text box thing might make sense to you after a couple more dashboards. I know a lot of people who develop dashboards who they use a blank. And when I told them about the text box idea, because you actually have the little text, they're like, that's a great idea. So if you don't get it now, don't worry about it. Not a big deal. It took my horizontal container and made it really small. So I'm going to size it down a little bit. And then I am going to take my total tweets. Oh, I never renamed. Yeah, that's a mistake. Look, they're all called total tweets, but then they probably have at the end of them. Yeah, that was a mistake there. But it doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter. So I'm going to take all 3 of my bands and I'm going to put them in here. I would like total tweets to be first, so I'm going to switch them all to being entire view. It's going to look messy for a second, but don't worry about it. Now that I've got everything in the container that I want, I'm going to delete that text. And then here's a thing that we didn't do in the last dashboard. I'm going to hide the title because we have all of the information that we need in the text box itself. So now we've got our 3 bands across the top here for the information that we want to see. Now let's think about our other sheets, bringing them in. So I'm thinking we'll still do this line across the bottom. So I'll take this all-time lines here, bring it in. That's going to be across the bottom. And I'm going to hide the title because we don't need it. I think this is pretty self-explanatory looking at the graph. You don't need a title to tell you what it is. And now I want to have everything else be in a side-by-side format. So I'm going to take another horizontal container. I'm going to lock it in place with a text box so I know where we are. And then I'm going to take my last sheets that I want in here. Let's see, I want the tweet category to come first. And then I want the map. And then I want the tweet time. Yes, awesome. So what this has done over here is Tableau automatically will put color legends and filters and stuff into this box over here. I find it to be really annoying that it does that. And when I'm building and I actually kind of don't want it to mess up my layout, what I'll actually do is I'll grab I'll turn it on floating and I'll just grab a vertical container and I'll put it out here. Because then if you do that and you add sheets to the view, it'll automatically put these into this floating container instead of moving your entire dashboard over and creating this container over here, which I think is annoying. But it's there, doesn't matter. I might want to use these. I'm not decided on it yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually switch it. Go to this little drop-down menu here. I'm going to switch it to be floating. I'm going to bring it over here. And then this is the legend for the map. I'm going to switch it to be floating. I'm going to bring it over here. And then I'm going to get rid of this container. Get out of here. I don't want you. Awesome. Okay. So this is my structure of my dashboard. Now, let's make it look good. So you can pause here. You can think about what you would do to make it look good based off of my tips. Or we can move on and we can do it together. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about here is all of these. You see these axes we've got going on here? I almost never have my axis showing on my projects. That just usually is just not necessary. So let's start with this count of tweets category. We can keep it, right? This shows us the count of tweets. Or instead, we can do a label. So interestingly, because this already has this count of tweets as a label here, I've already broken it out by gender, if we take count of tweets and we put it onto label, it's going to label them individually, which is okay. I'm okay with that. but I'd actually prefer to do it as like a count of the total. So the way that we're going to do this, it's a funny little thing. I might be introducing you to it now for the first time. I use this all the time. If you're a regular Tableau user, you have to use this trick all the time. What we're going to do is we're going to hold down Control, or whatever it is on a Mac, I'm not sure, and drag, which just duplicates it. So now we've got two of the same thing. And then I'm going to right click on this second one, and I'm going to click Dual Axis. So now it puts them on the same chart. Mark type is automatic, so I'm going to switch it back to be bar. I want them both to be bar. Something that's really important here is that sometimes it doesn't sync up the axes. So 1600 might be down here on one and up here on another. You don't want that. Sometimes actually you do, but usually you don't. I actually made that mistake on one of my technical interviews when I was going for the job that I have currently. One of my axes wasn't synchronized, and it was showing a very different picture than the actual picture. And they noticed during the interview. So synchronize your axes by doing this. You right click on the axis, it's dual axis, click synchronize axis. Now you know it's always going to have 1600 is going to be equal to 1600. So now what we can do is this is representing the back one essentially, and this is representing the front one. So on this back one, I'm going to take gender off. And what actually happened here is that if this, I'll just show you what it looks like. Took the coloring, took the dividing off, and that's why the label is now at the top. But we can't see the background one because it's in the background. So the foreground one, we can just take the label off. So now we have the label showing you how many tweets there are in that category. We don't need the header anymore. So I'm going to right click, show header, and it actually gets rid of both of them when you do kind of the main one. It'll get rid of the header for both of them. So this is looking good. We'll worry about color in a minute. And I am going to do the same thing with, a similar thing with this tweet time sheet. So I'm going to go to the tweet time sheet, and I would like to get rid of my axis. Now, what I can do is I can hold Control again, or just come over here and grab count of tweets. Either way, either grab count of tweets from here, or hold Control and grab it to duplicate it and bring it over onto label. Now, a lot of beginner projects, I will see every single point along the way labeled. However, I think this is pretty unnecessary. The only time I would label every single point along the way is when it's really important what that number is, and you have an end user who's printing it, and so they wouldn't be able to use the tooltip hover over option. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to come into label, and we're going to select min and max. And for a chart like this, I don't think the minimum is actually that important because we kind of know that it starts at 0, but we'll keep it anyways. Now we're just showing the maximum and the minimum. We can get rid of that header. Things are clean. Also the hour here, something that you can think about doing for dates on an axis is you can click format here, and then you can like format the style of them. Like I could do it as like a 12-hour. But I'm actually going to leave it for now because I think that's kind of maybe a next level project thing. But just so you know that it's there. Okay, so we got that. And then this one, I don't think the number of tweets is actually important. I think that really what's important here is we're just showcasing kind of like the progression of the tweets going on. So I'm just going to hide the header altogether, and I'm not even going to worry about putting a label on it because like I don't think that we need to know that information. And then let's do some resizing of things. This can be really annoying. So these I hate these little black arrows. I've never used them. They create this weird behavior sometimes where when you snap it, what it's essentially just told me is, okay, I will snap the alignment of this and this together. But like it does all kinds of weird things. Sometimes you do that and it'll like make like everything will just squish down and then a whole sheet will disappear. And I never use it. It's very bad behavior. So anyways, we slide this over. Doesn't seem to be a huge deal to snap it in place, but I generally avoid that. I've just had too many problems with it. And I can get rid of my little text box here to hold my place. I don't need it anymore. And awesome. Now let's switch into dark mode. So the way we're going to do dark mode here is well, I guess I should give you a little bit of context. In order to, right now we've got one sheet selected, but if we want to select the container that's in, we can double click. Remember how we had made a horizontal container and we had put them all in a container together? So that's how we get to multiple containers. And now this one is in another container. So if I double click again, now it gives me the whole dashboard. So I can go to this layout tab on the left over here and go to background and turn it black. Oops, nothing happened. Anticlimactic. Why is nothing happening? I think my loom thing is in the way here. Come on. Hey, background. Oh, okay, hang on 1 second. Okay, I just had to bring it over onto another and bring it back to get it tapped. But anyways, it happened. So now looks kind of funny because we've got a couple of things going on here. I'm looking at this and like that looks terrible. It's because this particular version of Tableau, when I'm on my second monitor, it sometimes like will make text look like pixelated like that. It's a Tableau bug. We're just gonna roll with it. So what's happening here is that the fill on all of these sheets is set by default to white, which is annoying. So what we can do is we can right click on format. It'll bring up this whole formatting. The first time I saw this, I was so overwhelmed because there's there's just literally like so many options. Don't worry too much about it. If we need to do a formatting step, I'll walk you through it. If not, play around with it on your own. There's a lot of formatting options. But what we're looking for here is the fill color, shading, none. And it shades it to none. So what we can do is we can actually take this and just click through. There's other ways to do it, but the simplest way, honestly, is to just go one sheet at a time and just turn the fill to none. None and none. Okay, now we're gonna see how much of the dashboard it'll do this for. But another little trick that's handy in Tableau is you can go to dashboard and format, and you can actually, this may or may not work, I didn't actually test this, you can actually ask for all of the text on your dashboard to be white. Okay, so any text that you haven't already edited on your dashboard will now naturally go to be white. But because I guess I edited all the text, it's not going to be so kind. But it did do all the worksheet titles, which we're going to get rid of anyways. Whatever. Let's see. Will it do this? Nope. So that's a tip. It's not working in our case. We're going to have to do it the manual way. That's fine. So what we can do is we can click on this sheet. We know that there's the title up here. Turn it to white. Wow, it really buggy, huh? 5? That's very strange. 12 and 9. Okay, cool. And then we are going to go to this sheet and we're going to have to X out of the formatting pane here. Turn it to white text. And this one, turn it to white text. It's a bit tedious. That is part of my job. Some days is just spending my day clicking, 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 without very much thought at all. Okay, so this one, the way that I'm going to change this, I'm going to right click, I'm going to click on format, and then I'm going to ask for things to be white so I can see them. I think that the labels themselves I'm actually going to have to format from the sheet itself. So I'm going to go to the sheet, I'm going to go to the label, and I'm going to ask for it to be white. Okay. Same thing with this one. We are going to turn the label white, which also we should be able to do here. Yeah, Either one is fine. Labels are white. Now let's turn this axis to be white. I mean, we can think about if we want the axis or not. I'd say you should think about that. Like, play with the different axis options. Why did you not change to be axis? It's because I wasn't in axis, I was in pane. So this is the pane here, and then this is the axis. So that's why it didn't change. White. Awesome. Okay, and then the last thing that we need to change the just general background color of is the map. So this is kind of a cool thing here. If you click on the map, you can go to its sheet or stay on the dashboard, but up here there's this map option. Click on it, go to background maps, and select dark. So now we have a dark one. I kind of want this to be darker, so what I'm going to do is map options. Nope. Map options is how you can turn off, like, I don't want people to be able to zoom in and out, which I think I often will turn that off because I think it's so annoying how, like, when you scroll in, it just moves things around. But no, we actually want background layers, which will bring this thing up here. And then I'm going to change the washout. So it's like truly a dark background. Yeah, I like that. And then let's think about our, well, almost there. I'm so ready to do the color scheme, but we're not there yet. So we're going to format legends. We're going to right click on this legend and format legend. Change text to be white. And same thing with this one. Format legends. Change the text to be white. Awesome. Now we can. Now I'm ready to think about color. Are you ready to think about color? Because I am. I'm thinking that we'll come back to this. I'm thinking that for this one here, I would really like to use yellow because we're talking like a New Year's Eve theme here. So I am thinking we should use this color, which I've got over here. And then let's see what that looks like on the dashboard. I like that. I think that's very New Year's Eve themed. Same thing with this one. I'm going to change it. It's saved. I just used this color, so it's saved right here. So I'm just going to click on that. Okay, now we change that color. For the map, I'm not going to do anything crazy. I think I'm just going to choose from one of the defaults. So I'm going to go to Edit Colors. And then let's look at red gold. Yeah, let me think about that. So I would try out a couple of different, I think I already did try out a couple of different ones, but I'm thinking that looks pretty good. So let's see if we reverse it, what it looks like. No, I hate that. Nope, I hate that. So we're keeping it. Okay. So I find that clients with who are less familiar with data almost always definitely need a color legend to be available to show them the exact things. Whereas clients who work with data more often, we often get rid of the color legend and we use something that's just kind of intuitive to them. But fill that out on an individual project basis if you're keeping your color legend or not. And then the male female. So I thought a lot about this with this male. Oh, what I just did, by the way, is I double clicked. Double clicking in a legend will bring up the color legend. The male female thing, I personally don't love the red blue kind of stereotypical male female thing, but it is kind of a common thing that people are used to seeing. With the dark background, I tried a bunch of different colors. Overall, a tip that I'll give you on color is that once you get into more advanced projects, you actually will find that you're using less and less color, because beginner projects are often kind of like this Crayola box of color on everything and so many different colors, or the same color repeated for a bunch of different measures, which is confusing. But then if you look at, like, go to Tableau Public and like scroll through and look at like inspiring vizzes, you'll find a lot of times they are really pared down about colors, or they'll pick like, we're using kind of a purple color scheme and the colors will be similar but different tones and variations. So what I'm trying to get at here is use color sparingly, but because we are doing a beginner project, and I wanted to be realistic to what a beginner project is, I decided to use some kind of obvious colors. So for male, we're going to use this blue color. And then for female, we are going to use this red color. Okay, let's see how that looks. Yeah. And then I actually think one more thing I'd like to do here is have the color switch around. I don't know, I think that like with having the blue and then the red with like the background and stuff, I didn't love that. So just dragging. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this color scheme. We can make this here a little bit smaller. It doesn't need to be taking up so much space. The real points of the dashboard here that we're trying to make are these charts. So I want to give them the space to really sing. Awesome. Now, I hate all these lines going on here. That's definitely gonna need to be addressed. So what we can do here is we can right click on format, do this lines thing, and like I tend to just turn all the lines off. Like, you don't need to like figure out which thing means which line, just turn them all off. I wish that there was just a default button that Tableau had that you could just say, turn off all of the lines. Another sneaky thing, you turn off all the lines, you're in sheet, which should be for all. But you almost always then still have to go turn off grid lines in the individual thing. I don't know why it does that. I don't love it. But that looks much better. If we are always, we've already sorted this by kind of height of category. So I make projects for data that is updating regularly. And so I think about, if the data changes, is this going to still work? So in general, for this project, putting the legend here, totally fine. It's totally fine to put the color legend here, because this data set is never going to have these bars get high enough to be overlapping. But if you had a regularly updating data set, what happens if one day they're all roughly the same height and then these bars come up to here? Now it's over top of the legend. So just something to think about, but for this data set, it's totally fine here. Another thing is we can see this tweet category here. We don't need that. We kind of know like that these are the categories, right? So I'm just going to hide field labels for columns. I'm just going to hide it. And I'm going to do the same thing here on this sheet. Hide field labels. And then we're going to turn off all of our lines again. Boom, we don't need those. We just go away. And then for this sheet as well, grid lines go away. So I think that looks a lot better. I think it looks a lot cleaner. There's still some lines turned on, and I'll be honest with you, I don't even know which lines I'm looking to turn off right now. So I'm just going to turn off everything because I think that it is unnecessary. Make sure you're on sheet when you do this, because if you're on rows or columns, it just does the rows or the columns. Something that is a fun little trick too that you can do is when you have a sheet. So what sheet are we on right now? We are on, so what I can do is I can X out of format, go to this dashboard, and I can see this is highlighting that we are on tweet time B. That's the name of the sheet. So I can go down to tweet time B and I can click copy formatting. And then I can go over to tweet category B and I can paste formatting. And then it should, yeah, okay. Well, it pasted that I had not changed this. Okay. It pasted more than I wanted it to paste, because it pasted that this axis here is not, I never changed it to be white. So we switch it to white. I feel like I'm like Bob Ross over here. Happy little accidents. switch the axis to be white. But the goal that I was trying to do when I did that copy and paste is that I was trying to retain, I turned off all the lines here. It should retain that I turned off all the lines here. I have to go back and format the legend again. Wow, that was really a failure. Really didn't work out how I wanted it to. Anyways, what I was trying to do is turn off all of these lines because I think that they are just a visual distraction. Okay, and then I'll just leave these. I think they're okay as they are. So now these titles here. I was thinking that something that I think is cool for a lot of beginner projects to do. I don't necessarily use this in my work with clients. I do sometimes. It depends on like what the type of work is. But for these projects where it's more of almost an infographic basically, I like to do as a title as a question, like the titles of the sheets as questions. So for this one, I was thinking that a good title, this is my other window that I've got opening up right here, is what categories are the most and least popular. And so then I will paste that in right here. What categories are the most and least popular? Super weird though, like in this other thing, my sizing is 12. And then when it copy and pasted, that must be a bug because it should copy and paste and retain all of my size and formatting, but it's from my other screen to this one, it's like sizing everything down. Must be a bug. Anyways, size 12, what categories are the most and least popular? And then from this one, where are we tweeting from? And then this one. So we're not renaming the sheet right now, we're actually just renaming the title that we see. So the name down here is staying the same, but the title that we see is being updated. Cool, so now we've got questions going on. We don't need a title on this one, we've already had that. I think that this hour of tweet created is not necessary because I think just having the date is pretty self-explanatory. So I am going to just double click to open up the axis and then delete. If you just delete the title that's in there, it'll just like, did you see how it kind of dropped down? It'll just drop down because it knows that there's actually no title that you want there. Okay, this is looking pretty good. So something that I'm not going to do on this tutorial with you is all these tooltips. I kind of showed you an example of how I would change them before. So like I'll do one tooltip with you, but it's just, I think it's redundant to go through all the tooltips here. But basically, we want to know the tweet category, count of tweets, and the user gender. I center these. And these are actually pretty good. Sometimes I'll like have to change the name. Yeah, user gender. That's a little bit too informal. Tweeter gender? I don't know. You can put in there what you think should go in there. And then I think having these be bolded is fine. So that just looks a little bit better in my opinion. But I would go and edit the tooltips for all of these. We've got, so let's do a check over this dashboard. We've got all of these. Oh yeah, okay. So when I hover over a band, not very helpful for me to have the tooltip pop up. So what I'll actually do is click on it. Well, I guess I'll tell you this. This is actually a pretty beginner level project thing to see. But personally what I'll do is I'll click on it. I'll go to worksheet, tooltip, and then I'll turn the tooltip off. Show tooltips, turn that off. So then when you hover over it, a tooltip doesn't pop up. But I think that's actually a pretty beginner project thing, so I'll leave it. And then this, I'm just not loving the size of this. Another thing that I will say is that I turn the scale up on my computer when I develop dashboards because my eyesight, I just don't like to have to use my eyes really hard, and my actual laptop is a pretty small screen. So I turn the scale up on my computer like normally for everything that I do on it, but I realize that that is a problem when I develop dashboards, because I'll develop a dashboard and everything is sized correctly, and then I'll send it to my boss and he'll open it where he's got scale on normal, and everything will be small and like not quite in the right place. And so for months we were like, what the heck is going on? And then we realized it's because I turned my scale up. So just putting this caveat out there, like when you develop your dashboards, the scale that you set your monitor on will impact the way things show up on the dashboard. So we've got our tweets, our bands here. I personally think that they should be a little bit bigger on our screen here, just like the way that they're taking up space. I just don't love. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this up to be, let's go with 16. Why not? And then let's turn this up to 10. Does that say Tweeties? Oh no, it doesn't. Okay, total tweets. All right, so let's do the same thing on the other ones. Text. Turn it up to, what did I do? 15? I don't remember. And then 10. Finally, the last one. Here. Oops. As I do these tutorials, I think about Alex the Analyst and his guided tutorials, and he's just so polished, so used to talking on a long video like this. In case you can't tell, I'm not still getting used to this, so I might say some funny things or do some funny things sometimes, but little happy accidents. So I am going to just move this legend over because, again, we have this like huge blank space. So something that I would suggest doing is turning Alaska and Hawaii into their own sheets and then just like putting them into a container, like maybe a horizontal or vertical container so that they like fit better together. And then you can just be zoomed into just the states. That's kind of not a beginner level project thing. I also think this label maybe is not quite beginner. I think, like I said, beginners sometimes label every point along the way. But I think this looks pretty good. Besides the tooltips, tooltips. If you want to take a look at like what your project looks like in presentation mode, you can do this. Let me see if I can make my face smaller. Yes, I can. So here it is. Here's our dashboard. We made our beginner dashboard. So what we can do here is let's give this a name. Let's go out of here. So let's call this beginner dash. And then we're going to hide all of our sheets. So satisfying to clean everything up down there. So when you're in presentation mode, you can still go back and forth. So we made a first beginner project, which had all those labels and axes and non-intuitive color schemes and floating containers. And we upgraded it to, I think, be more insightful and just look better. It just looks better. Not necessarily because of the dark color scheme. I think it went well because of New Year's Eve, but just I personally like the look of this better. So I hope that you enjoyed, and yeah, if you create this and then you put it onto Tableau Public or whatever, if you make a LinkedIn post, first of all, okay, I'll give you this tip in this video. If you make a LinkedIn post and you want to link to a dashboard, LinkedIn doesn't like it when you send people out of LinkedIn. So it won't, if you put a link directly in the post, it won't really show that many people the post. So what you want to do instead is export your static. So what you're going to do here is dashboard, and then, oh, does it not happen? Okay. Well, in the regular one, there's an export image option, but I guess in Tableau Public, there is not. Although I imagine once you're in Tableau Public, you can do it. Anyways, what I was going to say before I got derailed is you want to get just a static image of your dashboard without the white space around it. and attach that to your LinkedIn post as a picture, because pictures actually do pretty well on LinkedIn. And then in the comments, you can link to your put the link to where the actual visualization is on Tableau Public, and that will just in general get better engagement and do better with the algorithm. And so what I was going to say is, go ahead, please tag me if you do my beginner project or the first project, if you like it, if you have feedback, if you have things you'd like to see differently. This is my first video that I've made kind of this series. I'm going to make a couple others, but I'd love to see what you do, and especially if you take this project and you put your own tweaks and touches on it, I'd love to see it. So I'm Annie Nelson. I'm on LinkedIn. I imagine I'll be on LinkedIn for the foreseeable future. I'd love to see it. So thanks for coming along, and I guess I should probably show you. I just am nervous about server. This is how you would publish. So you need to take several steps back here. So what we want to do here, the last thing that we want to do is we want to we haven't done the tooltips, but so what we want to do here is we want to publish this to the server. So what we would do is save to Tableau Public as, and then you'll be prompted to sign in and everything. But what you'll do is once you have signed in, you can give it a name. And then actually something I've noticed is that Tableau Public is, so the last step of what we'd want to do here is in order to get this from our computer here to Tableau Public, is we would go to File, Save to Tableau Public As. That's going to make you log in, but once you're signed in, you can save to Tableau Public As, give the project a name. Unfortunately, you can't publish both of these together to Tableau Public. Like if you did a first project and a beginner and you wanted to publish them both to Tableau Public, you can't. The way around that is that you can actually make a story, and you can put your first project in it, and then you can make a new blank story point, and you can put your second one in it. This is just a really janky way of doing it. But then if you were to publish this story to Tableau Public, then you would also have access to both of these dashboards from Tableau Public. Whereas if you only publish if you didn't do that, then you could only publish one dashboard or the other, because that's a limitation. So happy posting. Get your work out there so people can see it, and thanks for coming along.